Welcome to the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors regular board meeting, March 24th, 2021. Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke,
Here.
Vice President Cockrell,
Here.
Secretary McShane,
Here.
Director McKimmy,
Here. Sorta.
Director Stock. What's that mean?
I had my second shot yesterday. I'm been.
Oh,
up.
yeah.
I get mine on Friday. Yeah. Okay. Director Stockman,
I'm here.
Deputy Chief Cox,
Here.
Chief Larkin,
Here.
Jean Savory,
Here.
and myself. Did I miss anybody?
Great. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chief, do we have anybody on from the public who would like to speak?
The only name I see is Michelle. Michelle, I don't know if you had anything to say.
I'm sorry.
No,
We
I'm
have.
just, it's okay. I'm just gonna listen. Thanks.
Great. Yep, no public comment, President Burke.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Gary,
Moving on to the consent calendar. Director McKinney.
I need to recuse myself from the consent calendar, please.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
With that, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Director McKimmy.
Recused.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Stockman, Director Stockman,
Yes.
and Secretary McShane.
Yes.
For the sake, thank you. For the sake of the public, I just note that all the checks and payments that the district has made here in the past month are in the packet and have just been approved and are available for the public to review if they choose to. Moving on to continuing business. Item A, consider for approval a resolution authorizing receipt of 220 mandatory fire inspections. Chief Cox.
Yeah, thank you, President Burke. This is an annual report that is really due to a Senate Bill 1205 that came out of the Ghost Ship fires and requires all fire agencies to report out their state mandated inspections. This year, we are in a little bit different of a situation than we've been in before because of the pandemic and what's occurred over the last 12 months. If you remember last year, we were in the high 90s on most of these categories, if not 100%. This year, we're only at 100% at I for institutional. And then our focus for our inspectors has been getting back out to the educational facilities, the E occupancies, as schools return to some sort of normalcy. So although the numbers are down, it's really explained by the fact that our inspectors were not able or not directed to inspect these facilities that were closed during the majority of the pandemic.
Questions or comments? Who is the administrating authority for this project, Chief? Is this something that we the administrating, we the board?
Exactly. So the board is required to, by resolution, accept the report from staff every year, basically acknowledging what the inspections are within the district.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 221-09?
First, Gary, just for my clarification. So does that mean that what part of the grand jury process continues to make sure that the numbers that we're following the procedure? And does that affect how we ongoingly do this? Is that an accurate question?
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you correctly, Director Stockman, really what the law says is that the district is responsible for state mandated inspections. And really what this law tried to do was close the gap between what's actually happening at the prevention level and making sure that a board formally accepts the report every year and knows what the level of inspections are within that jurisdiction. So it doesn't do anything to release us of anything. It basically is just a formality to say, as a board, we recognize where we stand related to mandatory inspections in the district.
Very good. I'm clear. Thank you.
And just to clarify, and make it very clear that the Senate bill made it mandatory that each governing board report and accept this report every year. That's the key element of the mandate. Was not all jurisdictions were reporting their inspection. So this puts a clarifying stamp on it that each year that the board is hearing what the fire district has done and then accepting that report for how many inspections we've actually completed.
Thank you, Chief Larkin.
Any other questions? We have a motion approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Gene.
This is for approval of the resolution, right?
Excuse me?
This is for approval of the resolution? That's what
This is on the resolution 2021-09.
correct. Okay. President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
and Secretary McShane.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 5-0 by roll call.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, continuing business review, discuss, take action on 220 annual report. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Burke. This is a follow-up from last month. You'll see the 2020 annual report, the draft that's in your binder. As we discussed last month, to potentially making this into some sort of flyer that we could send out. And we've added on the backside the board president's message, which would be folded in half, then with some sort of address for everyone in the district. And really what the idea behind this is to give all of the constituents within the district a snapshot of our activities for the year and really an understanding of our revenue expenditures and fund balances in some sort of professional format.
Questions, comments?
I like it.
I would just I'll just make two quick comments. One is the message on the back was intended, that I wrote was just intended to be a draft. And if any board member has any additions and minor changes, please get with Chief Cox to make those, because I don't have any pride in authorship of that. But if there's any other things you'd like to do, I do think it's important, though, to have a message from the board on these kind of documents to the public. That's all. And the second report, Chief, we're calling this an annual report. As I understand your purpose, you'd like to perhaps send other notices out to the public. And I just wonder whether it should be an annual report or just a community report or something without having it dated. Just a suggestion. I really don't have any strong feelings on it. And I don't, with that, do I have a motion to approve the draft annual report?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any further questions or comments?
I have
Roll
one.
call, please. Excuse
I
me.
have one, Chief Cox.
Sure.
Chief, how does this information and report, what is the process you use to report to the city of Half Moon Bay and the County Board of Supervisors? Is this shared in the same way, or is that more formal or informal?
Yeah, so we don't, it's more informal. We don't have any formal reporting mechanism as a district.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, this is designed to go to citizens within the district, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
All this is, and my only comment on this, and I really appreciate the message, mainly because of its simplicity. I got a headache today reading a bunch of stuff today concerning our board meeting. It was a pleasure to read this. It's very simple, straightforward. It's something that will not be thrown away. It will be read. It may be thrown away, but at least it will be read first. And without some big, long, heavy-duty president's message on the back side, I'm very pleased with it.
Okay.
And
Let's see.
I'm sorry,
Roll call.
before you take a vote, may I just make one comment? Given that this is going to be mailed out, under the mass mailing provisions of the conflict code, state conflict code, I think this should read from the board rather than board president. There's a prohibition
Oh,
on mass mailings
good-
to call
good
out one
point.
individual.
Good point. Thank you. Yes. Any further comments? Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes,
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Secretary McShane.
Yes.
Passes 5-0 by roll call.
so just for clarification, the word president will be stricken from this message, so it will say board message, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Fair enough, thank you very
Or
much,
Board of Directors,
that's good too. Yeah,
Fire Protection District.
Moving on to continuing business, item C, and there's no action on this. At last meeting, I had asked that a clean copy of the strategic plan be put in the packet so that every board member would have a copy of it, and that's all it is. But we've already approved this, so there's no action necessary on that item. Moving on to item D, review and discuss take action on 221 vegetation management plan. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Burke, and I can definitely pass the reins to Director Stockman. This is really a follow-up from what we've been speaking about for a few months now, which is really the actions the board wants to take related to vegetation management within the district. You'll remember last month, after the Vegetation Management Committee met, we came back with a set of recommendations to consider. And we have now refined that back to an action plan of what we think are some viable, actionable tasks that we can undertake as a district to not only address the vegetation management, but kind of increase awareness and education about defensible space and vegetation management throughout the district. And happy to pass it to you, Director Stockman, for anything additional.
No, I would just like to say to the fellow board members, the process we're using is a new committee. I spoke to Chief Cox today. We discussed the report, and more so, the process for me to use as the liaison to report back to all of you. And we kind of defined it by what the current targeted dates that in the near future are pretty direct on how they'll be achieved. And then I would ask for his guidance for the best way for me and the role of reporting to you for those 22 and year 2023 targets, the best way to stay best informed on that. So the honest reply for you guys is that, this is an educational curve. I think it's a very pertinent topic. I think not just to us as a board, but to the community, especially being the increased risk of a disaster that would hit the entire coastside. Also, I'll say a little bit more I'll include it here so we don't have to do the later vegetation report. The one item that I sat on last month, Chief Cox was on that Zoom call also, was with the San Mateo County Fire Safe Council. That showed me the amount of agencies and shareholders that are all participating and trying to get a common good direction. And in that common good to identify funding sources, which is essential to make any changes that the district and staff is going to try to affect change and priority. So as that council continues to meet, with Chief Cox and myself, we'll try to give you the most accurate, pertinent information of each of those meetings. That's all I have. Thank you, Chief Cox.
Chief, did you have anything to add?
No, I echo those sentiments. I think having representation at the Fire Safe Council to bring back to the district can't be understated, just because that really is that central hub for all of the vegetation management actions across the county. So when actions are being spoken about on the coast side, having Director Stockman there to really bring that message back and give the expertise of a local resident is highly valuable. Just from some developments this week, I know that the Fire Safe Council and the Resource Conservation District are going to be greatly expanding the chipping program on the coast side, both in El Granada and up in the Monterey area. So that connection, that conduit is one that, as we develop and roll out these actions, is important to make sure we're doing it kind of in sync with our neighbors who also have an interest on the coast.
Chief Cox and Steve, thank you very much for your efforts in this. And once again, I just ask that this item be kept in the agenda so that we have an update every month as to what changes and what's going on, because it certainly is vitally important. Thank you all. Very good. Moving on to item F, the Coastside CERT program update from Chief Cosgrave. Chief, nice to see you here this evening.
Good to see all of you. Thank you for inviting us here. The CERT community has continued to be active even with the restrictions that were put on us through COVID. Other agencies, the county and the city, have reached out for volunteers to help out with their efforts, and people that have been CERT trained and safety trained have helped out to do the alerting and evacuation down in the debris flow areas down in Pescadero and the South Coast. They've assisted with the COVID testing for the county and now at the city in Half Moon Bay every Monday. So there's been a lot of engagement in activities. We've just had two recent meetings, a core leadership meeting and a neighborhood leadership meeting on Zoom to get everything re-engaged and active. We were real active before COVID of neighborhood building, and that's the key to the program, is getting the neighborhoods ready to be independent and be able to act on their own until help can arrive. So at this time, not trained certs, but there's 1,798 people that are participating at some level, taking the newsletters, reading, and things like that. We have 188 people that have signed up to be neighborhood leadership. That means hosting their own events, building their own database to try to get people active in their neighborhoods and in preparedness. There's 59 people supporting people in those roles. We have 298 people that have graduated through the CERT program. So we've done a lot of work. Also, there's 111 ham operators. And then if you remember, the thing that started this whole thing was the Listos California for All grant. That has come to an end. We satisfied and exceeded every level of it. We have 77 people were trained in Listos, which we only needed 50. So we've done much more than that. We've submitted our last invoice to the state for reimbursement. So far, we've received just over $40,000 in reimbursement, and we have about 19,700 still coming in the last quarter. So we used all that money for training and materials and very effectively. And with our contacts, we've also been offered an FSTI grant, which is not more money for us, but supplies and materials that we're able to use to bolster our training materials and to get out to the neighborhoods. So we have 32 neighborhoods. We're trying to get little pop-up tents out to each one of the neighborhoods so that they can have a starting place to rally if they have a disaster. So we're building it at the neighborhood level up. We've kind of been going downward, but the ideal of CERT is, help your neighbor and start block by block. So we've got a lot of that going on. We have 25 to 30 hybrid certs that will be graduating soon. They're on the online portion. They come in, we've done some webinars with them, and then they're going to come in for a full day of skills and exercises to finish that project. So we're going to add to our ranks coming up soon. So with that, again, thank you for your sponsorship and support. And that's all I have on that.
Thank you.
Very good, Chief. Thank you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, Dave,
Yes.
you've done a lovely job with your den.
With my office, I just wanted to outshine your office.
Wouldn't take much, babe. Wouldn't take much.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do.
All right, I'm going to jump on another meeting. So
Okay, cool. Thank you.
thank you.
Any Steve, do you have a question?
No, just thank you.
Oh, okay. Chief Coggrave, thank you very much for your efforts and report. Thank you. Moving on to item F, continuing business, review and discuss approved Fire Station 40 exterior painting contract. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Burke. This comes before you as a part of our normal budgeted item for the year, which is for the repainting of Station 40. We received a number of bids. The lowest qualified bidder, which was a responsive bidder, came in at the amount of $31,800. That includes the pressure washing of the roof at Station 40, as well as an exterior painting of the facility, colors being the same as they are now. So no change in colors, just the continuation of what we have. And we're really seeking the award of this this bid. I think it will be a nice addition as they finish the intersection here as well. And it's the gateway of the city and the community to have the facility repainted.
Thank you, Chief. Questions?
I have a question.
Bruce?
I wanted to say that I'm really happy, Chief, that you got the 12 submissions in response to your notice. That makes me feel really good. And I love your presentation because you explain how they range in price from lowest to highest. And I think it's wonderful that this particular group is the one that you're suggesting.
Thank you. Bruce, you had a question?
Yeah, so Jonathan, so as they clean the roof or pressure wash the roof, the metal, it's metal, sheet metal, so it's gonna rust. To repair any, rust spots or something going on, is that a contingency in the contract, or is that going to be addressed, or will they bring it to our attention, or?
Yeah, so I think yes, yes, and yes. So it will be brought to our attention, and the roof is a whole separate issue because we're not painting the roof.
Correct.
But if we do, through the pressure washing process, discover leaks or rust that need to get addressed, then like we have in the past, we'll get those dealt with kind of one-on-one.
Okay, right on. Thank you, because I know there's gonna be.
Any other questions?
Thanks for
Steve. Steve?
Mine's a comment, and I think it's appropriate, and it doesn't sound like we have any, besides Michelle, of our community members watching tonight, but in reference to the comment of it being the new gateway. And I watched that gateway and that stoplight and that really being a more formal entrance to the city, and have been involved in this process before serving on this board. And now the negative and concerning comments that came out from the community regarding the fire tower, the station, its size, its appearance. In my biased opinion, I don't think there's a more appropriate facility to be at the gateway of the entrance of the city than this station and the headquarters and that training tower. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Good point.
100%.
Yeah. There's no interest in changing the color to pink, I guess. Is that correct? Okay, that's fine. Then do I have a motion to approve resolution 221-08?
Just after a comment, yeah, I'll make that motion, but I would like to comment that Steve's absolutely correct. In fact, if anything, I think the fire department facilities are a plus. And I can't think of a better way for someone to be introduced to Half Moon Bay than to see a nice looking fire station and a state-of-the-art, nice looking training facility. I think give somebody confidence if he was planning on maybe moving here. So that's very good. Anyhow, I so move.
And second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments? Roll call, please, Jane.
President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Director McKimmey,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
and Secretary McShane.
Yes.
Passes 5-0 by roll call.
Moving on to new business, consider for approval a resolution to execute an amendment to agreement with Paul McGregor for weed abatement services. Chief Cox.
Thank you. As you'll remember, last year, our bids for weed abatement went out. As a part of the bid and contract, a one-year extension was also included in there as an option for the district. Staff is recommending execution of that extension to the terms with Paul McGregor for executing the weed abatement process for those properties that fail to mitigate the weeds themselves.
So basically, it's just an extension for a year from the first for the previous year. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt resolution 2021-06?
So moved.
Question before my second.
Yes, go ahead.
What we've done with the past vendors, was it also, because I can't recall. So this is past practice with what we've done with the other contracts.
Yeah, this is past practice not only for the weed abatement contracts, but if you look at our auditing services, that was I believe a 2-year or a 1 or 2 year contract with an option to extend for an additional, and we implemented that additional amendment as well. So it's not uncommon. It was built into the original contract.
With that, I make a second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Director McKimmey,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
and Secretary McShane.
Yes.
Passes 5-0 by roll call.
Moving on to item B, review, discuss, take action on staff report related to the Coastside Fire Protection District declaring its intent to transition from an at-large to a by-district director election system. Chief Cox.
Thank you, President Berg. This is going to be all for Jean on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. What you have before you tonight is a resolution through which staff is recommending that you approve, which would begin the transition process from an at-large to a by-district election system for the Coastside Fire Protection District. We are asking you to take this step because on February 9th, you received a letter from a law firm, Menlo and Sarsfield, and in that they've indicated they have an unnamed group of voters who reside in the district who allege that the system that is in place in the district now violates the California Voting Rights Act. This is a letter that's been received by a number of cities and special districts within the county. And when a letter of this type is received, you have two choices. One, to wait for the lawsuit, which will follow, or to begin a transition to an at-district election, or excuse me, by-district election system. We are recommending that you take this step to initiate that process because in litigation filed throughout the state of California, it is very difficult, if not impossible, not to be forced to this transition, even if litigation is initiated. So we believe this is a fiscally responsive step for the district to take. It will be a step that will start a very long process. And on page 2 of your staff report, we've attempted to lay out for you. You will need 5 public hearings before you reach any decision. There will be a great deal of opportunity for the public to participate in this process. You will need to hire a demographer, and we're also recommending that an RFP be issued for that purpose this evening. The demographer will take census data and will draft models of districts that you will then be asked to look at and the public will be asked to comment on. So with all of that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but we recommend to you that you adopt the resolution in your packet beginning this process. Thank you.
Before we go into this, let me just ask, frankly, we don't have any choice here. I think we all recognize that. But just before we get to questions, let me have can I have a motion to approve resolution 221-07?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Yeah, when you read that, Gene, you allege that people within the district are going around saying they did, but that's not your words, are alleging that that there's some sort of not giving everyone a fair chance. Is that just boilerplate that goes in the letter to everyone, or are there people within the district filing complaints?
We have received no complaints. This is a letter that a number of cities and districts throughout the county have received. It is a standard letter from a law firm that specializes in this type of litigation.
So there is no people within the district that are complaining about our current system. Is that an accurate statement?
we have received no complaints.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the whole thing is just this law firm trying to go out and get money.
Mhm.
It's BS, but
Yeah.
it's gonna cost us more money to fight it. The district is working, this is a public statement, the district is working fine right now. But anyway, all right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way, Bruce, but our hands are tied.
I know, I'm just saying.
Can I say something? Through the
Uh,
chair?
May I
Through the
ask a question? What is the, Gene, is there a particular timeline we have for the, I think, what is it, 5 meetings we have to have? Can we expedite those? Can we have special meetings to get that behind us? Is there any advantage to doing that type of thing?
No, I think you should let this process play out in the time frame that it will take the demographers to do the study that you need. We have already reached out to the law firm and entered into what's called basically a tolling agreement, so that they will take no action against the district in court, so long as we begin the process and you move at a reasonable pace through that process. There's a limited number of demographers in the state, and so we need to bring you some bids from those demographers. You need to choose a demographer, and then that really their work and the speed of their work really drives this process.
Through the
Very
chair,
good.
this is Gene Headley. May I say something? Hello?
Steve, did you have a question, Steve?
Gene first, I'm sorry. Question.
Gene Headley, I wanted to say something. Through
Go
the chair?
ahead, Gene.
Okay.
All right,
if it-
I've lost everybody. Let's go back to Steve Stockman. Do you have a question, Steve, or comment?
No, when we lost you, Gene Headley has a question or a comment to make first, and then I'll make my comment.
Gene Headley, go ahead.
Okay, if it helps you to know this, I'd take the minutes for the North Coast County Water District, and they went through this about a year ago.
Yeah.
So, and their attorneys are Hanson Bridges. I don't know if you wanted to talk to anybody, but that happened about a year ago here in Pacifica. Same thing for the 5 directors, 5 districts. It was really long and drawn out, but
It's
Thank
you.
happening everywhere, Gene.
they had to do it. So, okay.
Steve?
Yes, 2 questions for Gene. The first being, what is common for this process? What's the common length of time that you've seen?
I'm sorry, the common plaintiff?
No, the length of time that this.
Oh, I apologize.
Sure, it varies districts, but what's the general time?
It generally takes several months. I know Burlingame is just completing a year-long process to come to a decision on the districts.
And then the other one I think is an important question, is a logistics question. And again, from your experience of what you've seen, I try to think that this will continue to happen in all communities, but we're really only focusing on the Coastside community. And I was trying to think of another agency that would be a district that would have the same requirements. And it comes to me, the closest thing that I think would match all the citizens of the Coastside would be Cabrillo School District. And if the Cabrillo School District, from what I understand, hasn't been started this process or been approached, but would it be common or smart to do one study for both districts if they serve the same population? Would that reduce our cost and overall serve the community better? Would that be an outreach to the Cabrillo district before we even start this process?
I think that you should, given the fact that we've received the letter, I think we should move forward. If at some point there's an interest on their part, we could explore whether there's some economies of scale. But I think at this point, our recommendation to you is that you authorize the issuance of the RFP so that we can start getting bids from demographers for you so that you can look at those.
Very clear. Thank you.
Also, Michelle just told us that it's already been completed with CUSD.
Same,
Thank you,
and
Michelle.
making the comment that's the same demography. So I don't know if that's a direction to Chief Larkin or Chief Cox or to council to see if if that can be played to the districts and it's the people we serve's advantage.
Can you hear me, Steve?
I can.
Michelle just wrote to me and said that CUSD already did it.
And
Yeah,
I think what we can do when we issue the RFP, we can ask what other districts, special districts, in fact, I think it's already in the RFP, they have done work for. And so as you look at those responses that come back, you can see which of the demographers already worked with that district, and that may help you in making a decision who you may want to use as your demographer.
I would just, I've looked at the one that the school district put together at least as at this early stage. It looked to me like there were some areas that I personally would question, but they at least have gone through it, and there may be some advantages to communicating. But I would echo the Gene Severy's point, let's proceed on our own, see how this goes. And if there's some advantage to coordinating and so forth, certainly we want to look forward to doing that. Other questions or other comments? I guess one other question I'd ask of Eugene, if this whole thing comes together, it looks like this would be affect the 2022 election for the Coastside Fire District?
It may or may not, depending on how quickly you do this. This process has to be completed 6 months before the next upcoming election, at which it would take effect. So it will depend on how quickly your demographer works, how quickly the public hearings are held. So technically, yes, could we be looking at 2022? Maybe. I think that's a pretty aggressive schedule.
Just in trying to visualize how this thing will unfold, and I certainly have no experience in it and so forth, but it seemed to me the 2022 date would be in play. And it is, I think, entirely possible that there could be an entirely new board for the Coastside Fire Protection District at that time. And I think in terms of the possible transitions and other things that would be associated with that, to have everything run as smoothly as possible, that we're really going to have to pay attention to how this proceeds and when, and the timing of some of the changes as well, because it could be rather a dramatic change. Okay, with that, anything else?
Yes.
We've already, excuse me.
A follow to your comment, President Burke, is that it seems like as this process moves along, it's going to be important for the board involvement. I think in one special way is that I agree with your scenario. All 5 of us could maybe not even be serving on the board or choose to, but I think it would be responsible to have some kind of dialogue as we go along, as we get a better idea of how it will be divided, how the district will be divided up, to some forethought about who might be the future people that choose to serve, in which ways we can recruit for those specific parts of the district. And I just put that out for all of our consideration, because it's going to dictate some things, and it's not going to be a normal process of what we're used to of how candidates come. And as we all know from past experiences, there's usually nobody else running for these seats. And so I think there has to be a more, some kind of planned process to try to get more people to step forward. What that looks like, I don't know, but I would hope that we would somehow be involved in that as a board.
President Burke, I want to talk.
Yes.
There is a map of the Cabrillo Unified School District redistricting in Michelle's post, and you can see it at your leisure.
Thank you.
That does cover us as well. I mean, why duplicate?
I'm
I'm
sure the demographer will take a close look at that as they go forward. We have a motion to.
I would ask, this is JB, I would ask the question, does the Cabrillo Unified School District boundaries, are they an exact overlay of the Coastside Fire Protection District boundaries? Because if they're not, unfortunately, that would maybe make their information not that good. Or if we used it, it could come back and bite us later.
JP's right. They do have that school up on Skyline, which I believe that's in our district too. I'm sorry. Actually, it's pretty much a
Are you
map.
talking about Kings Mountain? I don't believe is in our district.
No.
Well, look, let's let the
Yeah.
demographer figure that out. We'll follow it. I mean, we're not gonna make a decision on that.
Yeah, that's
That's
fine.
up to them. We have a motion on the floor to adopt resolution 221-07. Roll call, please, Jean.
President Burke,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
and Secretary McShane.
Yes.
Passes 5-0 by roll call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the Board of Directors and Chief's report, the Finance Committee did not have a meeting. In our packet is a spreadsheet of finances year-to-date through February, 2/3 of the year. Revenue is at 60%, 66% of the budget. Our expenses are at 26%, but we do not have two of the latest CAL FIRE invoices. So that figure could be a little bit deceiving. January revenue this year is actually up about 400,000 over a year ago, so it's very positive. And the good news this month, and I will say, is that if you see in your packet that the PAS report for the month of February had a gain of some $92,000 and stands at $4,393,000. Very positive. I assure you that the March report will not look as healthy, but that's where it stands. Any question on the finances? Okay, moving on. Volunteer Committee, Director Cockrell.
With the volunteer department had their meeting via Zoom. Extremely well attended. They commented on their latest tower class, which is going on right now. It started on March the 6th, and they're currently being trained. They'll finish up in July. I believe the count was 8 from Half Moon Bay, 4 from Honda, and 1 from Kings Mountain, as I believe the thing was. They commented on some of the responses they've made recently, one being a car fire up in 92, and the other one being the barn fire, where they actually were quite active. And my understanding is they actually did the fire watch overnight. So in that case, it was nice to have that as a resource or as an adjunct to the paid staff. They discussed some of their fundraising efforts. Basically, due to the COVID, they're greatly restricted, so they're looking at some options for that. Their current report is their total funds they have. They've got $41,500 in their checking account and $173,100 in their savings account. So their gross revenue in hand is $214,605. Now I want to make a comment on that. That is part of the Half Moon Bay Volunteer Fire, which I believe is not a service organization, but it's merely an adjunct, or it's 501c3. So that is separate from the Coastside Volunteers. So I'm wondering how important it is that the board have that information. I'm very happy to convey it. I'm just wondering what we do with it.
It'd be nice to know.
Okay, then I'll just continue. It's no problem for me. It's very easy to write those numbers down. And,
Cool. Thank you.
And they take this money, they give some of it away to scholarships, and they do stuff with it. They did get a $5,000 donation from the Half Moon Bay Beautification Committee. And it was basically given to volunteers because there was no pumpkin festival this year. Nice they have enough money on hand to do that.
Okay.
And they, of course, they continue the training with all three of the engine companies. If any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to.
So JB, how many volunteers are currently active?
At the meeting, they have like 11, which is pretty good, and there's 8 more in training.
So 19, correct? What's the roster require? What do we like to see? What's our number?
My understanding is the maximum roster desirable. I don't know who came up with this number, would be 20.
Oh, so we're below.
Chief
the-
Larkin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say when we made the transition, we had capped that number at 20, just for the simple fact it was an even number for us, and it's what we've been able to keep over the years with the fluctuation. So it keeps us in influx where we have a good active roster of volunteers within the organization to help support the paid staff.
Okay. How old is the oldest volunteer?
Ooh, I'd have to go back and look at the what that is. I don't
Either
have.
78 or 79.
Well, we have a couple different levels of volunteers. We have some that
Sure.
are just in a support role, which they're not actively responding to incidents, but they're participating in some of the training, maintaining their
Sure.
medical and things of that nature.
Okay.
But the active volunteers actually responding. I don't have that number offhand, but it's somewhere in the 60s, in their 60s.
Cool.
Okay,
They're
questions?
young men.
And women.
Yes, sir.
Anything else from JB? Okay, moving on. The Land and Structures Committee, Director Cockrell, Director McKimmey.
I believe it's Director McKimmey and Director Stockman now.
What
No.
did I say?
No, you're right.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Okay. Director Stockman, Vegetation Committee, anything else, Steve, that you wanted to add?
No, not, I think it was complete of what I
Okay.
included.
All right. Land and Structures Committee, Director Cockrell, Director McKimmey.
JB?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so
There's
Couple
this
weeks
big
ago,
long,
like-
there's this big long thing on Station 41 I was looking at. They get my headache from reading it. But, at Station 44, possible replacement, but that's went out to the whole board.
exactly. So Station 41, like 2-3 weeks ago, I don't recall. I went by the station, did not go through the gate, just kind of looked at the chain and the rust stains and all the stains in the parking area. And I am totally unhappy with what's going on. If anything, yeah, I know that the troops are working on the light, a situation of illumination, which maybe we need to talk about later. But there's stains, and I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. That all that grease and oil and stains that Falk was going to walk away from, and I know they're going to do it. Leave stuff on the table, money. But Jonathan is looking right now at stainless chain for the opening, closing. But we still need, and I'll go down to do it myself, to erase the rust stains on the concrete. So,
Director McKimmey,
yes, ma'am.
the punch list.
Jonathan, sir.
Yeah, so we are down to just a few items on the punch list. I also went, Director McKimmey, and took a look at the ground and sent Falk some photos of those items. I think on the chain, the difficulty with the chain is the compound was spec'd with that chain on that gate. So
Yes,
Falk saying, hey, we installed what was on the plan and it's not on. So I think that's the resolution on the chain, is to be stainless. But I agree, there's a couple other spots that they need to come back and address a little bit more to our liking.
Absolutely. A lot of money was spent there. You need to get a perfect product.
Director McKimmey, thank you for bringing that up, and we'd ask Chief Cox and staff to take a look at what we can do to fix it. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If they're alleging they complied with the specs, then would this require a change order?
We could just, if I may, Jonathan, do it on our own. Measure the chain, replace the chain, because we have that same stainless chain on our boats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably save a lot of money that way. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I will do it. I will do it.
Very good.
God bless you.
Moving on, Special Districts Association, no report. ALS JPA liaison report. I have filled out the paperwork and filled out the various forms to become a member of the JPA liaison, and I am scheduled to have an orientation meeting, so I'll be up to date, and I'll report back to the board as soon as that happens on that. Let's see. I don't have any report other on the FDAC liaison report, other than the fact that we are a member and there is a Zoom conference that they've scheduled sometime this spring, but any of the details I don't have on that date or anything like that, but it is a Zoom conference. Emergency preparedness report, Director Stockman.
Yes, I attended the monthly keep on 5th. This one had some significance because it had a report from the new county OES. I think I've shared in past meetings, and perhaps Chief Cox has also. The county OES laid within the direction of the sheriff's office. That has since been changed back to the county manager's office. The history of it, for you who have been on the Coastside a long time, is about 25 years ago, it was under the county manager's office, and it switched to the sheriff's office for reasons of efficiency at that time. I think they made the right move by going out to the county manager's office. In that report that was made in that keep meeting, it introduced the director, which is Dan Belleville. He works under the direction of our county manager, Mike Callaghy. So also working with Dan as a project manager is Don Matei. And I'm sure many of you remember Don was the director of county OES at one point for the sheriff's office. So both have a lot of experience in the county. And in this year, the actual go date, they're still technically under the sheriff's office, but being a new agency, they have to set they now have to have new protocols, new procedures, new budget. That's what they've been working on over this last year. In that meeting and report to the community, they asked for patience because the amount of work that's involved to change the agency, it takes a lot of energy, but in the long run, they feel they'll be more efficient. I think their sign of reporting to community, I think, is a good sign of in better communication and relationship with the coast. Not that what didn't exist with the sheriff's office, but I think it was a sign that it has a place to improve. They also talked about the local hazard mitigation plan. I won't go over that. It was in Chief Cox's report of how that process works in the vegetation management report. The importance of that is that as it relates to the county and the district, is that that's a procedure that allows for FEMA support after an event. So it's somewhat of it's a plan that allows our community to have access to FEMA during and after a disaster. And you can correct me, Chief Cox, if that's not accurate, but that's the way I interpreted it. And then quickly to end, there were some organization reports, one being for the MRC, the Medical Reserve Council. In past reports, I've said they work closely with Harrison Steins, which is part of County Human Services. Some big steps for that group is they had an application approval from the National MRC, which allows them to have access for additional training and tracking. Also, a website set up that allows for them to recruit volunteers to be part of that organization, and also allows a process for their vetting. Then also County Council confirmed that on a county call out, right? If it's an official call out, that they have coverage from a workman's comp liability that falls under the county. That was one of the big holdups of that group reaching its potential earlier. So again, I think we can all understand that with the possibility of isolation of the Coastside and not having a hospital here, that's a huge asset to have people volunteer as doctor, nurses, paramedics, and the process they'll use to protect all of us in that kind of disaster. Moving on to the next group, Aries Group, which is the the ham operator and the radio communications. They've done a drill last month that was a direct line of sight drill to identify the blank spots where they can't communicate. That's important because if repeaters are lost, we saw that in the CZU fire where your repeaters are lost, so you lose that ability to communicate to the entire community. They had a drill in 2019 to identify those spots. The benefit of that was many of the ham operators had increased their individual antennas so that those communication gaps were lessened. And then the last report was from Pat Coffey from La Honda Fire Brigade. And that was that Chief Ari DeLay has stepped down as the chief of that organization. And the new leader is Paul Long, and who has acted as the assistant chief. So in the past, and so the community is very confident in that new leadership. And with that, that's my closing. Thank you.
Director Stockman,
Yes,
he went on to be the chief of San Bruno.
correct, right. So thank you for adding that. Yes.
Yes, Bruce.
So y'all are saying there's no hospital over here, Steve?
What's that?
There's no hospital?
That's what I've heard.
Well, it used to be Seton Coastside. What is it now?
Well,
There's an
maybe
operating room, there's an
maybe
emergency
I
room,
maybe I made a miscomment. I don't follow that. I just know that what I would do if someone in my family was injured.
Yeah, me too.
Moving-
But however,
Moving
in
on.
emergency,
Moving on.
Moving on, let me just ask if either Chief Cox or perhaps Steve, in the past, my interaction with the OES office and folks was, to be kind, very confusing and not very productive. And I would just ask with this new team and this new organization going forward, that at some point in time when it's convenient, that perhaps we have a little review and discussion or presentation, I should say, as to how that the new OES organization interacts with the other organizations here on the coast, CERT and some of the other organizations you've had. It's just so that there is, perhaps it's for me, just to make sure that I understand the organizational and how they interrelate, if you would, please. Anything else? We done? Okay. Fire Chief, Attorney's report.
Nothing, thank you.
Fire Chief's report, Chief Cox.
Yeah, just a few things. COVID-19, we continue to see the increase in our PPE supplies from the grant that we went in on with all the other fire agencies in the county. First responders from the coast have been participating as vaccinators at the mass vaccination sites, which include San Francisco Airport. Engine 41 and 44 spent several days over there over the last 2 weeks. We did ensure that we did an engine swap from the bay side to the coast side anytime they were over there vaccinating, so we didn't leave any coverage holes on the coast. No current cases within our crews within the district right now, and helping the county however we can to get those vaccinations out. Engine 40 today was actually giving vaccinations here at a small clinic in town as well. So just doing our part to support getting as many people vaccinated as we can. As far as personnel are concerned, we made an offer for the second SSA in the office. That person accepted the position. He comes to us from another state agency. He'll be starting on April 17th, and we'll have more information and be able to introduce him in next month's meeting.
Great.
As far as operations are concerned, fairly average for call volumes. We did have a fatality traffic collision on Highway 1 south of town. That was a fairly high-speed head-on collision that our crews responded to. This week we have a rope rescue technician class taking place here at Station 40 this week. This is the high angle rescue class needed for over the side rescues. As far as prevention is concerned, we're continuing to get the inspection letters for the business inspections that we conduct through the self-certification process. And they've already started to prepare the letters for the weed abatement program. So those should be going out in the coming weeks as well. Facilities, we talked about Station 41. We had a concerning incident here at Station 40. One of the AMR employees' catalytic converters was stolen one night from their vehicle in the Station 40 parking lot. I think it definitely begs the question of looking at some sort of funding for security measures at facilities in next year's budget. I know this is becoming an issue across the country, really, but we're fairly vulnerable here. As far as apparatus are concerned, there was an equipment committee meeting last week. They are finalizing the engine specifications for the new build. And as that comes forward, we'll bring it to the board. The new battalion chief's vehicles, they continue to be outfitted and should be in the field once we can get all the parts. Suppliers are having a heck of a time with parts and materials at the moment, so everything's just taking a lot longer than in the past. As far as issues we're concerned with or working on, we're just working through the new CAD system, as I referred to last month. No major response challenges. Our battalion chiefs and company officers have done a good job of making sure that the responses are appropriate, and we're just following a process with PSC for any issues that do come up regarding apparatus recommendations or responses to make sure that this new CAD is exactly the way that we want it and need it to be. And then as we talked about, the volunteers are in their second week of the Volunteer Academy. Chief Lord did meet with the volunteer managers. We're going to bring back to you a few small changes on the volunteer manual that you approved a couple of years ago. We just spent some time reviewing that, and those can be anticipated probably in the next month or so. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Chief Cox? Chief Larkin, did you have any comments?
No, just one really. I just want to make the board aware on the state side, obviously with the lack of rain that we have seen this winter, the state will be starting to staff earlier than normal in anticipation of an early fire season. So that will be, available. We'll have additional available resources much earlier in the year. We'll start staffing in first part of April versus normally at the end of May. So almost a month ahead of schedule. So just more of an alert to you that this could be another potential damaging fire season based on the lack of rain that we're seeing. It's just the drought continues, and we're hoping to get some late rains, but it doesn't look like it's very promising for us to have a great, huge recovery before summer hits. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Chief. Hey, Bruce?
Chief, I think I've recorded like 10 inches here. What does CAL FIRE have?
I'd have to go back and look at the actual numbers for what we have on the coast. I don't have them off the top of my head, but we're trending just below what we consider a normal rainfall for the unit, but that's
Sure.
on an average for the entire unit. So, but it's below normal.
Correct. You're on the coast 18 to 24. I know we're way below that.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you,
Okay.
Chief.
Okay. With that and without objections, the regular meeting of the Coastside Fire Protection District will be adjourned. The board will reconvene in a special executive session to discuss anticipated litigation and property negotiations. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Nice to see you all.